Today is April 25th, 2025, and you're listening to Space News First Up.
Did you know Space News now has 6 newsletters? We recently added an audio, video, and live events newsletter and are now launching our bi-weekly China report. To sign up, visit spacenews.com/newsletters.
Here are today's top headlines in space. The nominee to be NASA's administrator said proposed cuts of up to 50% in science would not be optimal. NASA is terminating a lease for an office in New York that works on climate research. 3 Chinese astronauts arrived at the Tiangong space station Thursday. China has selected 10 international payloads that will fly on a robotic lunar lander mission later this decade. And a new report warns institutional fragmentation and regulatory hurdles threaten U.S. leadership in space as it competes with China.
First Up is produced by Space News, the industry standard for professional space journalism. Visit spacenews.com for breaking news, policy updates, and original analysis.
We begin today with news that the nominee to be NASA's administrator said proposed cuts of up to 50% in science would not be optimal. In responses to questions for the record from members of the Senate Commerce Committee posted online Thursday, Jared Isaacman said he was not involved in discussions about the White House's fiscal year 2026 budget proposal. That plan reportedly includes a cut of nearly 50% in NASA science, which Isaacman said does not appear to be an optimal outcome. In particular, he expressed support for the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, which would be canceled in the proposal. Isaacman said that if budgets were limited, he would prioritize Artemis over human missions to Mars, reiterating his support for major elements of Artemis like SLS and Orion. He also downplayed his connection to Elon Musk, saying the two were not close and calling 1,000% false. A report in March that stated Musk called Isaacman after the election to offer him the NASA administrator job. NASA is terminating a lease for an office in New York that works on climate research. The Goddard Space Flight Center said Thursday that its lease for offices for the Goddard Institute for Space Sciences, GIS, in a Columbia University building would be terminated at the end of May. GISS itself will remain open, working remotely as NASA works to find alternative office space. NASA did not disclose the reason for the lease termination, other than it was linked to ongoing reviews by the current administration of all government leases. GISS has been in New York since its founding in 1961, and at its current building since the late 1960s, under a lease that currently costs NASA $3 million a year. The institute, part of Goddard's Earth Science Division, is noted for its work on climate modeling. 3 Chinese astronauts arrived at the Tiangong space station Thursday. The Shenzhou 20 spacecraft docked with Tiangong at around 11:49 a.m. Eastern, 6.5 hours after its launch. The spacecraft carried Commander Chen Dong and crewmates Chen Zhongrui and Wang Jie, who will soon take over control of Tiangong in the coming days from the incumbent Shenzhou 19 crew. The 6-month-long Shenzhou 20 mission will include extravehicular activities, science and application experiments, outreach activities, and more. It will also receive the Tianzhou 9 cargo spacecraft. China has selected 10 international payloads that will fly on a robotic lunar lander mission later this decade. The China National Space Administration officially announced the selection Thursday of cooperation projects for the Chang'e 8 mission, scheduled to launch in 2028 or 2029, choosing 10 projects from 11 different countries, regions, and 1 international organization. The payloads include multifunctional robots, rovers, instruments for astronomy and analyzing particles, imagers, and a laser retroreflector. Chang'e 8 will target a landing on a plateau near Mons Mouton, also known as Leibniz Beta, near the lunar South Pole. A new report warns institutional fragmentation and regulatory hurdles threaten U.S. leadership in space as it competes with China. The State of the Space Industrial Base 2024 report, released this week by the nonprofit New Space Nexus in collaboration with Defense Department organizations, concludes that a lack of national direction is eroding America's long-term position in space. It contrasted institutional incoherence with rapid advances by China in various space-related fields. Multiple U.S. departments are independently publishing space strategies, but without an overarching plan or a lead authority to ensure implementation, Their efforts are often duplicative or misaligned, the study noted. The report calls for integrated campaign planning and the appointment of a lead agency or official to manage national efforts. In other news, Spaceflight now reports that SpaceX launched more Starlink satellites Thursday night. A Falcon 9 lifted off at 9:52 p.m. Eastern from Cape Canaveral, placing 28 Starlink satellites into orbit. The booster for the mission completed its 23rd flight with a drone ship landing. Aurora Tech, a German company developing a satellite constellation to track wildfires, opened a U.S. office. The company opened its U.S. headquarters in Denver on Thursday as it works to win new business from U.S. emergency services utility providers and government agencies. It announced Larimer County, Colorado, was one of its first customers for a program that gives fire agencies an affordable way to try its services, including hands-on training. Leveraging a proprietary network of 10 heat-tracking CubeSats in low Earth orbit, along with public data from more than 30 satellites in LEO and geostationary orbit, Aurora Tech says its services can significantly improve response capabilities once a fire breaks out. Science reports that the head of the National Science Foundation resigned Thursday. Sethuraman Panchanathan stepped down as NSF director 16 months before the end of his 6-year term. He did not give a reason for the abrupt departure other than stating that he felt, "I have done all I can to advance the mission of the agency." Panchanathan's departure comes as the NSF is facing a potential 55% cut to its budget and layoffs of half its staff. Bloomberg reports that Google's parent company saw its profit spike reportedly due to SpaceX. Alphabet reported $8 billion in unrealized gains in the first quarter of 2025, which the company said was from an investment in an unidentified private company. Google and Fidelity took a 10% stake in SpaceX in 2015 for $1 billion, and sources said Google recently sold at least some of those shares late last year as SpaceX's valuation reached $350 billion. NASA's Dragonfly mission to Titan has passed a key review. NASA said Thursday that Dragonfly completed its critical design review, allowing the mission to move ahead into assembly of the spacecraft. Dragonfly is scheduled to launch in July 2028, arriving at Saturn's largest moon in 2034. The nuclear-powered rotorcraft will fly to several locations on the surface of Titan to look for prebiotic chemical processes and complex organic compounds that could be the building blocks of life.